Well, we just wrapped up the Lake Chickamauga event. It was the first FLW Pro Circuit tournament where we had 50 some MLF guys come down and join us. We had a field of 204 boats, so it was quite large. And needless to say, I did not do well, and I'm not happy at all with how the event went. You know, I felt really good after my practice. I had 3 good days of practice. The first day I found what I thought was a really good shallow grass area in that 6 to 8 foot depth range. It just seemed like I got a lot of bites and the quality was good. I jumped off like a 6-pounder. I caught a 4-pounder. I lost a one that was probably close to 4. And I shook off another 6 or 7 bites, and that was all within like an hour period. So I had that. I had some other grass patches that were decent. But it just, yeah, I felt good after the first day of practice. The second and third day I went out and pretty much spent most of my time graphing. Found a whole bunch of schools, but everyone else kind of found the same schools. That's one problem with Lake Chickamauga, in my opinion, when you're fishing a ledge tournament. It's not like Kentucky Lake, it's not like Pickwick Lake. There's one main channel, and then outside of that channel is a relatively shallow ledge. And it leads to just there not being a ton of kind of those hidden spots, or those schools that are harder to find. It really seemed like everyone found the same fish. And you know, on Kentucky Lake or Pickwick Lake, you've got a secondary channel with a ledge, you know, in the middle. The lake's a mile, 2 miles wide, and it's all ledge. You know, at Chickamauga, it's like, you know, you're on the lower end and it's a half-mile wide. So there's really just not a lot of great ledge water, but I still felt like I could make that work. I had I'd say 3 or 4 schools of fish that just seemed like they had a lot better quality. I had an 8-pounder the second and third day of practice, several 4-pounders as well. And you're not working the school. You graph it, you turn around, make a cast or 2, and you know, you catch a couple. And you know, some of the schools were big, but they were smaller fish. Like, it was hard to catch one over 2 pounds. And in some of those instances in practice, I'd actually sit there for, you know, 10, 15 minutes and catch, you know, fish on almost every cast, but they're 14-inch fish. So you want to try to gauge the school of fish that you're after. And you know, I felt good that I'd be able to get on one of those schools and get a decent bag the first day, and then maybe the second day, if the schools were beaten up, then go to my grass stuff and make that work. Unfortunately, and I'm not making excuses for my performance, but I was last flight the first day, I was boat 193 out of 204, and at that point it became pretty evident to me that all of my ledge stuff was going to be beaten up on. I mean, I pretty much drove down the lake looking to get on something, and I just couldn't do it. I mean, there's 2 approaches to ledge fishing. One is you found the fish, so you pull up and fish it, whether there's 5 other guys there with you, or you try to go and fish your own school of fish. And I have just a really hard time pulling in on a school that other people are fishing. I don't like bumping boats with people. It's just not me. I like to be out in my own world. And I don't know that that's the right solution, because at this point for me it seems like if I can get spots to myself, I do really well. But in the tournaments like this one, where I'm never able to get a spot to myself, I struggle. So you know, we've got some footage for the first day. It's you know, nothing super exciting. I did have 1 5-pounder that actually came out of my grass, because I ran ledge stuff. I ran to some ledge stuff trying to get on it quick, couldn't do it, so then I went to my grass stuff just to get on that and hopefully try to get some fish where I could bounce back to my ledge fish and try to get that afternoon bite once I started generating some water. So we've got some footage of those fish.
Boat number 191, Chris Snow. Boat number 192, Ryan Chandler.
luck.
Thank you too, buddy. Be careful.
One at 93, Matthew Stefan. One at 94, Kyle Kelly. Take all three of them, taking it on the bottom. Take it again.
School fired, mate.
Wanted on the bottom laying still.
What is this you got on your power pole back here? On the bracket?
It's just a ladder.
Oh yeah, cool. I didn't know they had that. I'll put that on mine.
That's a skeeter thing.
The bracket's a little different. My bracket. Yeah, this big wad of stuff will be over us pretty much in the next hour.
It'll be over us.
Yes, it's moving on.
Just want to rip the chatterbait around a little bit to see if they're there, and they're just not. You know, if they're reacting to something. I know they're here. They're just not acting.
Oh God. That's the kind we're after. Looked like a 5 or 6. Borrowing a net from the guy. He ain't that big, he's long. Borrowing a net from the guy, and this thing is just so big.
I ended up day one having a little over 13 pounds. I caught a bunch of fish. You know, the grass spot I finally got to work a little bit. Caught a 5-pounder out of that, and then went down lake and struggled mightily in the middle part of the day. But once, being a late boat flight, once everyone else started working their way down, I was able to get on some spots and catch some fish. I just never really caught anything that upgraded me more than an ounce or two. So, you know, for my ledge fishing, for the most part, you know, I was throwing, well, a variety of baits, but two of my main things were, this is a Dirty Jigs casting jig. It's a Luke Clausen casting jig. This was a 9/16 ounce, and the go-to color. I've got a chigger bug, a Berkley chigger bug on the back. That's a great trailer to use. And I rig it on this is a MHX, so a mud hole component, MB873, MB873. It's one of my favorite rods. This is a custom rod that I make. And then this is a Abbott Garcia ALF reel. I like these because they're higher speed, so when you're stroking a jig, which is what I had to do to get bites, I can get a lot more line in per reel turn, which allows me to get a quicker hook set. And a lot of times when you stroke a jig, if they hit it at the top, it's harder to pick up that line. So that was one main ledge bait. I did get some on the Berkley Dredger. This is a 20.5 as well. It seemed like after watching the tournament that a lot of guys really were getting better bites on the crankbait. You know, I caught fish on it. Can't say I was catching bigger fish than on my other ledge bites, but I do think in general crankbaits get better bites. And I was using this on a CB 907 MHX blank, and I had this on a Revo MGX reel, and I had that on, both those were on 15-pound 100% Berkley fluorocarbon line. I feel like 15-pound is like the perfect for ledge fishing. You really shouldn't be going too much heavier than that, in my opinion, unless you're throwing really big baits. There's not much reason to go much lighter than that. So, you know, I ended up the day, it wasn't terrible. I was in the 80s after the first day, so that's within check range. They paid 100 spots, $10,000 down to 102nd, I think. So I was within check range, but the weights were so stacked. They were, I think, from like 60th to 150th was like a 3-pound spread. It was like 13.5 to 11 pounds or something like that. So they really were tight. And on a lake like Chickamauga, where you've got a ton of big fish, you know, that one bite changes it. So, you know, I went out the next day, first flight, and I figured I'd start on a community spot that I knew had bigger fish. It was a spot I'd caught one of my 8-pounders, hoping that they had regrouped a little bit over the night, because I checked it on my way back to the ramp at the end of day one and graphed it and saw like 2 fish. I mean, it was, they were not there, but I was hoping that they may have come back overnight. And I pulled up on it, started there, and couldn't get anything going. There were like 4 or 5 boats that eventually ended up starting there, and I think I saw one fish caught. It wasn't anything special, and I sat there for an hour, and then I went to some grass, or back to my grass. Well, actually, just pulled into a couple of pockets, started throwing the Berkley Chapo around. This is the small one. This is one of my favorite baits for fishing bluegill related fish. And I ended up catching, I think, 3 keepers on that, and then went to my grass fish, where my primary bait was a Berkley wind-up worm. This is a great worm to throw. It just seems like anytime you're around grass, you get some really good strikes with that, and it catches good quality fish, and that's what I had caught him on in practice. In the tournament, you know, I went to that grass patch the first day and, you know, caught a limit out of it. I went back the second day, and I caught, I think it was like 8 or 9 fish, but only 2 were keepers. 2 or 3 were keepers, and they were not the quality I was looking for. They were 2-pound class fish or less. And then at the end of the day, I ended up getting my biggest fish of the day, like a 2 1/4 pounder on the Chapo, and ended up weighing like 10.5 pounds. Not good, dropped 40 spots or something like that. Which, you know, overall for the tournament, it was like 130th place. For FLW points, I think I finished 88th, which was, you know, a little bit below the middle of the pack, but still not at all where I want to be, not acceptable for myself. And sometimes you have a bad one, you move on to the next one, which is a couple hours away over on the Mississippi River out of La Crosse. That is definitely a place I'm looking forward to fishing. It's going to be an interesting tournament. We'll see what happens. Hopefully the conditions are stable and everyone can catch some fish. But I've got a few fish from day 2 I'll show you. My camera actually shut off partway through the day, so I don't have a whole ton of footage. But here's a few fish catches to end the video. Stay tuned if you like what I'm doing. Like and subscribe, and please share. Thank you very much.